Hi, welcome to the first ever episode of the Wandering Chronicles Podcast. My name is Ashley, and my co-host is...
I'm Jamie.
So, just to run this down, this podcast is a true story podcast where we are going to travel to different locations, because pandemic and also poor. And we're going to just explore different historically true stories based on different topics that we've already selected. So how we do this is...
In the U.S., I will add.
Okay.
Different places in the U.S., not...
Yes. So let's tell them a little bit about us.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
I guess I'll go first. My name is Ashley, as I said before, because I need to remind myself what my name is. And I live in Chicago. I was born and raised in Illinois, and I tolerate the state, I suppose. And I met Jamie at a art festival here. It's been an interesting friendship because we've only seen each other in person once.
We bonded,
and that was
over
our first
cats.
time. We bonded over her non-fixed kitten at the time, who is one of my favorite cats that she has now, Chibi, and her sexy meowing at her older cat who was fixed and very confused.
And air humping.
Oh, God, so much air humping.
Yeah, my name's Jamie, but I live in St. Louis. I'm not from here. I'm from Iowa. I've lived in a few places, but here's where I'm at now in St. Louis. And I met Ashley at a craft show that we were both selling at. She was selling her beautiful art. She's a fantastic artist. And I was selling
your beautiful
garbage. Paper made out of garbage. Yeah, so we struck up a friendship then. And I don't even remember if we purposely exchanged information or if we just... I don't remember that.
Just friended each other on Facebook or something. And...
Probably pretty immediately, and we have been friends ever since. That was almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And we have only seen each other that one time. We've had plans to see each other other times, and then, panic attacks and COVID got in the way of those meetings. So it's kind of hilarious when you think about, I used to live in Chicago, but I didn't meet her until after I left. And now we only live 5 hours away from each other, and we still haven't seen each other. So Ashley came to me in the summer, I think it was, with this idea to do a podcast, and we've been talking about doing it for a long time. Neither of us really know for sure what we're doing, so we've kind of done a lot of self-teaching and winging it to put this together. This goes. And so we do appreciate anyone who takes the time to listen, but also does so with a
open mind,
a graceful mind towards us learning as we go, because newbies, and that's how you learn things. I do think, Ashley, that it might be helpful if we give people just a rundown of the 8, or actually it's like 10 topics that we're going to do, just so they kind of know what to expect, because I think we're going to talk about a story from the Chicagoland area, the greater Chicago area. And it is a true crime story, but I think I don't want to be clear,
this is not going to be a true crime podcast.
Exactly. There will be some true crime stories that come up depending upon where the whimsical map and the topics take us, but there will be other stories too that are historical, and so I just think it's important that we tell everybody kind of what they can expect, so hopefully they'll come back and see us again. Even if true crime isn't their favorite thing ever, which can't relate.
We are not a true crime podcast. We are a storytelling podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And true crime is sometimes a story too. So
it is.
So along with each randomly selected location, we will be discussing one of the following story categories, the first of which is love, second is mystery, third is cultural, fourth is tragedy, fifth is comedy, sixth is originality, which is vague, but the stories will mostly be problem solving, inventions, innovations, that sort of stuff. Number 7 is people of prominence. Number 8 is environmental. Number 9 is convention versus rebellion. And number 10 is picker's choice.
Yeah, so I think we can cover a lot of really fun things, and we're both kind of interested in history. And
Exactly. Okay.
So Ashley did the research on the first story we're going to tell you about, just to get this kicked off. And the next one I think I'm probably going to do, right?
I think so, yeah. We'll switch off every other week. And at the end of this episode, a new story for next week, so we'll find out what Jamie will be telling us next week. And let me pull up my story. All right, so I'm going to be telling you about the murder of Suzanne Olds. So, Suzanne was born Suzanne Schonkweiler in October of 1937 and grew up in Monticello, Illinois, which is a small town between Champaign and Decatur. Suzanne was often described as attractive and vivacious, as she was a petite redhead. She eventually attended Northwestern University, where she earned a degree in education. And surprisingly, this is not where she ended up meeting her future husband, which was Dean Ambrose Olds. He grew up in Wichita, Kansas. He got degrees from Northwestern as well, and University of Michigan Law School. He was a bright and intelligent and intense man. People in multiple articles had described him as somebody you did not want to be on the opposite side of in a legal case. So
good at his job.
He is competent. At least early on, he is competent. So
I like the distinction.
Yes, things go off the rail. Let's just put it that way. I mean, it wouldn't be a murder story if things didn't go off the rail.
No, you can't have murder without rail
crashing. A murder. Yeah.
That's important too, I would say.
All right. So
you can't have a murder without death.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just attempted murder. Nobody wants to talk about that. Suzanne met Dean at a mutual friend's wedding in 1960, and they were married shortly after. They settled into their Indian Hills estate home located in Wilmette, Illinois, which is where I'm from. It's about 14 miles north of Chicago. Dean became a prominent intellectual property attorney and eventually an eventual partner at William Brinks Olds Hoffer Gilson and Leon, which, goddamn, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to say.
I see that sometimes at work because I work with law firms, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
It's like pick a name.
Pick your top two people and use their names.
That's what the one
for chose. Granted, a lot of them are related to each other, so the names overlap. So
yeah, but do they do it in a row, like Jones, 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 and Jones? Because I've seen that before too.
That's ridiculous. How many Jones do you need to list? One Jones is enough.
They should just call themselves Jones Cubed.
So, blah, blah, blah. Dean was a partner at this really long name law firm. And Suzanne worked as an educator at the Northbrook School District. She did eventually leave her job to be home with her three kids. Kristen, who was born in 1962, Courtney, who was born in 1965, and Stephen, who was born in 1968. Let's see. I always like it when people don't name their kids after themselves. So that's nice. That Dean wasn't like, my son needs to be Dean Jr. Come on.
I dated a guy like that. And I can't say his name, but could I?
I mean...
I shouldn't, but it's funny. It's such a bad name that you're like, you wanted three of them? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say that because one of my bosses named his son after him. And he's named after his father. So, like, there's three of them. But it's a normal name, and it's a nice name. It just gets confusing when people call for them. Because I'm like, you want the father or the son?
Yeah. This is a combination of a really bad first name with a really bad last name. They just don't work together. So the fact that they have three of them, it sounds like
shocking.
The name is very similar to a comic book villain. In fact, it is the same as a comic book villain.
Oh, you text me the name?
Yes, I will do that right now.
Thank you. Oh my god, the text came through. Hold on. Oh god, you're right. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that is terrible. Why would you want more of that? Okay. All right. Yeah, that is. You're right. It is a villain.
Already we're starting out with inside jokes.
Yeah, sorry guys. So
just think of the super villain's name from Unaliving Lake. That prominent comic book series Unaliving Swimming Hole.
He was one of the villains in the first movie they did.
Yep. And I didn't know that until I was watching the movie and they said his name. I'm like, holy shit. Holy shit.
I think we've given people enough clues to figure out who it is.
Yeah, but
we didn't say it.
He won't know. Know.
All right.
That's true.
Dean is about to meet his leggy blonde lover. Dean.
I thought she was a redhead.
That's his wife. We're talking about his lover.
Oh.
Yeah. Quite different.
Dean's up to some dastardly deeds.
Dastardly Dean.
Dastardly right. Dean. That's what I like to call him.
Dastardly Deeds Dean.
Yep.
Oh,
Done dirt cheap.
Oh my god, I can't even get to the third paragraph.
Alright, I'm just very funny.
You are hilarious.
I'm here for the lols.
Oh god, my cat's gonna close the bedroom door and lock themselves in because they're dumb.
They sound like teenagers.
Izzy is definitely like 2 seconds away from locking herself in the bedroom, and Johnny is about to run after her.
You're not my real mom!
I am baffled by those two. Okay, so Johnny's like standing in the doorway so she can't close the door, so I guess he's being the good boy right now.
What a good boy.
That or he's planning something dastardly like Dean. Alright, yeah. So
what's old Dean up to with his leggy blonde?
We're going back to the before times in 1989. Alright, so Dean was in New York City at the United Nations Plaza Hotel Bar when he met Helmut Karsten Hofer. Hofer was a 20-year-old, 6'4" blonde man from Germany, hence the leggy blonde.
The plot thickens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leggy blonde versus petite redhead. He's trying something opposite of what he has. Complete opposite. So, despite their age difference, as by this time Dean was 60 years old and Hofer was 20, he was absolutely captivated by Hofer. Although during some of my research, it did appear that Hofer had stated that the feelings were not mutual. Over the next 3 years, though, Dean would go through a very contentious divorce with his wife of 32 years. He would spend an estimated $2 million to fund his German lover's lifestyle, and he would lose his job and develop an alcohol addiction. So, Dean is
making some choices.
He's making some choices. I can't say I agree with his choices, but yeah, he's making choices. So,
choices were made.
This is all going to happen between 1990 and 1992 for this section. So, between 1990 and 1992, Dean would pour money from his and Suzanne's joint accounts, as well as draining his stake in the law firm's profit sharing to the tune of $675,625, which in today's money would be $1,346,463. So it is not a small sum. It is not a small sum. All so he could subsidize Hofer's business idea to start a Rolls-Royce service, which is just essentially a fancy limo rental business. Not that exciting, but it's all Rolls-Royce. So that was going to be a German company based in Munich. So between March and December of 1991, Dean purchased and shipped 3 Rolls-Royces from the United States to Germany. Each car including the shipping cost between $39,000 and $55,000. The first car, however, was totaled within a week of arriving to Munich when Hofer swerved while on the Autobahn. He was going 100 miles per hour and had to swerve to avoid a slower car. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but the car was totaled.
Oh.
So, yeah, he, did not do a good thing.
Yeah, no, that was not a cheap choice.
That was not a cheap choice. No. He definitely made a choice on that one.
Yeah.
In July of 1991, Kristen married Matt. Once the wedding was over, Suzanne did begin the process of consolidating her assets, which that included $1 million in stocks and bonds, farmland in Monticello that she had inherited from her family.
Oh, so she had money too.
She was actually the one who had money to begin with.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because if I remember properly, her father was a prominent attorney in Monticello, and her mom also did something, but I can't remember what it was. And they had a farm that they had run, and so when her parents passed away, she inherited the farm with her sister and her brother. So that land was worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's in her name. So yeah.
That makes sense.
She's just making sure that any assets that she had in her name were still under her name, so her husband couldn't have them.
Separate from the marriage, which makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So she just wanted to make sure that if anything happened, her kids would get what was theirs, and not their father. Which is exactly what I said. She inherited and changed her will so that her 3 grown children were the beneficiary of her entire estate. Suzanne officially filed for divorce in March of 1992, citing mental cruelty and irreconcilable differences. I would say she is spot on based on how things go down.
Yeah, well, it doesn't... Being cheated on isn't great.
No, it's not a fun feeling.
And even if it's just an emotional affair, which clearly it was, at least that, if not more.
Yeah. I mean, this was also in the late 80s, early 90s, where this is a woman from a affluent suburban neighborhood who is found out her husband is having an affair, but is also having an affair with a much younger man.
Yeah.
So this, I grew up in this neighborhood, in this area during that time, and I can tell you something like that would have been very shocking. Back then, at least. Probably not as much anymore, but I don't know. I don't go back to Wilmette. All right. So once the divorce proceedings had started, Dean was ordered to cease any further transfer of money overseas, an order that he absolutely ignored. As part of the divorce, Suzanne's lawyers were able to obtain Dean's 1991 tax returns. It showed an inordinate amount of money going to Germany, and the majority of which were listed as business expenses, but no income to show for it. When the expenses were examined, they were found to be for fancy restaurants, hotels, and liquor. This information led them to believe that Dean was attempting to hide money from her, which I would say
so.
It's an apt conclusion.
Yeah, right. Rightfully worried about.
Yeah, they have every reason to be concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of money, man.
Seriously. He is just throwing chunks of money at this blonde guy, and his wife is like, excuse me, that was our retirement money. What the hell are you doing?
Right.
And then she finds out, oh, that's your lover. All right, bye.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with having 2 men be lovers. I think it's wrong when you cheat on your spouse for it.
And steal. I mean, bottom line, you're stealing.
Not fair. You're stealing from your family. You're stealing from your kids. You're stealing from your wife. And I don't think Dean gave a shit about that. Oop, sorry for swearing. So
you may as well break the floodgate on that, because I know I will someday too.
So, towards the end of 1992, Hofer no longer wanted to run the Rolls-Royce rental service and wanted to move to the United States. So, by the spring of 1993, he had moved to Chicago. The business was liquidated and the cars were sold. Although Dean would later rant to what sounded like anybody who would listen to him that Suzanne cutting him off and from sending any further money to Germany caused the business to fail. So he's starting to have some resentment towards the wife he cheated on.
Right. Not taking any personal accountability.
Nope. Not taking sides in the story, but Dean sucks.
I already took sides.
Yeah. I've known about this story since I was a kid. So in March of 1993, Suzanne finally stopped Dean from sending money to Hoffer when she was able to prove that Dean had regularly ignored the court order to stop. As a result, the court took control of all of his funds. All money was to go through a court-appointed receiver. The stress was getting to him, which led Dean to begin drinking, and it became a problem that culminated in him being asked by his firm to take a non-voluntary leave of absence to go to the Betty Ford Clinic.
It's starting to sound a little bit like that current case, the Murdaugh case. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, I'll send you a link, but there is a current case going on, I believe, in North Carolina, of an attorney who he's currently at trial, so they haven't convicted her, but allegedly he killed his wife and child.
Well, I hope that it goes better for them proving he did it than they did with this one.
Oh no!
Yeah, sorry.
That's the worst foreshadowing ever.
Sorry. Oops. Did I ruin it?
No.
Okay, good. Let me ruin your day by telling you. After his return, a subpoena was delivered to his law firm from the SEC. It's a Securities and Exchange Commission. Was alleging that Dean had signed a consent agreement in regards to insider trading violations. Upon receiving, the firm eventually did ask Dean to leave his position. And as of September 1993, Dean had stepped down, leaving with a separation package. Now, I should add that some of the articles I read indicated that it was not a total consensus that he should leave, that some of the partners did not believe he should leave.
Okay.
So it was an interesting read to find out that some of them still had his back, but the majority of the partners on that very long list of names decided to kick him out or ask him to leave. And his name was eventually taken off the firm name.
Still not shortening it much, though.
No, I mean, his name is literally 4 letters. Like, that's not taking a lot off. So, at this point, Dean was in severe debt and with very restricted access to funds. On December 28th, 1993, at around 9 p.m., Suzanne spoke with her daughter, Kristen, on the phone, only hanging up so that Suzanne could take her golden retriever, Murphy, for a walk. Murphy. Later, when Kristen called her mother and got no response, she grew concerned. I believe at this point some of what was going on and realized their mom feared their father. Mm-hmm. So the concern for the no response was valid. I know that for the most part, she did try and shield her children from what was going on, but they were mostly adults at this point. I think even Stephen was at college at this point, so I don't think that they were 100% shielded, but they probably also perceived some of what was going on just by being around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard as a child of an alcoholic dad. You can tell something's up even if you don't know the details.
Exactly. You can kind of sense when things are wrong. So later, when Kristen called her mother and got no response, she grew concerned. She asked her husband to drive over to their house. They lived in Evanston, which is not a long walk, or not a long drive from Wilmette to Evanston. It's just the next town south. Mm-hmm. When he arrived at her home in Wilmette, he noticed that the garage was open and Murphy was loose on the lawn. Upon entering the open garage, Matt found Suzanne dead on the floor. She had been bludgeoned to death. The police would later describe that she died in a frenzy of violence. They would indicate that her attacker was so intent on killing her that the blows to her head continued long after she died.
Wow. That sounds personal.
It does sound very personal. So
I wonder who did that.
Yeah. Wonder. Who would have motive to kill his wife?
I mean, Suzanne.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to interject with my personal recollection of this because my house was across the street from their neighbor's house, from kitty corner. So like her property touched my neighbor's property in the back. And I was close friends with the girl who lived across the street. So I remember waking up because I had the only bedroom that faced the street, not the backyard. And my ceiling was flashing with red and blue. And I was looking at it confused because, you know, when you're half asleep, you don't know what's going on.
And a kid.
I was like, you know, 93. I was maybe 9 years old.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was 9 years old. So I remember getting out of bed and looking out the window, and the entire street was just covered in police cars. And honestly, like, I was just like, oh, this is weird. And as I've told you before, when I'm half asleep, I just like shrug things off and go back to sleep. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. There's something at the end of the hallway. I'm just going to go back to sleep.
Like the ghost.
Yes, the ghost in my house. The old lady in the stairs. So I found out after the fact that my friend told me that the killer had passed through her yard. So they had parked on our street in front of her house, crossed through her yard late at night, and climbed over their fence that separated their yard.
Wow.
And had gone that way, and that they'd also come back the same way and had passed the window where her mom was still awake, working on stuff in their study. So
that's scary.
Yeah. So
that's really
that's my personal connection to the story, is that my neighbor's house was used to get to and from the place. So they weren't seen parking in front of her house. So
wow.
The Wilmette police chief at the time, George Carpenter, on the day after discovering Suzanne's body, said that the victim was fully clothed and we have no evidence of theft, robbery, or burglary to the house itself. While it is premature to speculate on the possible motive, the evidence we have so far suggests that the offender may have come to the victim's home for the express purpose of causing her death.
Duh.
Yeah, well, when there's no other evidence of any other crime, it seems like the death was the main part of the party.
Yeah.
So
seems fairly obvious, but
yeah, I would say so. So the investigation did zero in on Hoffer early on, and the detectives also kept a close watch on Dean's movements. Hoffer did give conflicting stories about his whereabouts on the night of the murder. He first stated that he was driving Dean's Ford Taurus that night, something he did often, to visit his friend Douglas. However, Hoffer's public defender stated that Hoffer was in his Chicago apartment at the time of the murder, what was believed to take place. In April of 1994, Suzanne's blood was positively identified in Dean's Ford Taurus. Evidence found footprints consistent with the boots Hoffer had purchased in early December and consistent with his shoe size were found in the snow leading to and from Suzanne's garage. On December 28th, between 2 and 3 p.m., Hoffer was recorded in security footage entering a gas station on Green Bay Road and Tower Road in Winnetka. Apparently lost, he asked the cashier for directions to Ramona Court in Wilmette. Hoffer was told he had driven too far north and to get back on Green Bay Road and return to Lake Avenue in Wilmette. He again asked for directions to Ramona Court, which is the street that Suzanne lived on.
Okay.
So,
that seems fishy.
I also remember in some of the articles mentioning that the Ford Taurus was something bought after the separation. So the fact that Suzanne's blood was found in the car was suspicious, given that they were having a contentious divorce.
Right, like why would she be in his car?
Be in his car. So it wasn't a car they ever shared, so her DNA should never have been in there.
Yeah, that's suspicious for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not normal. Definitely not normal. So on May 10th, 1994, Hoffer was arrested 2 days before he was to fly back to Germany on an open ticket with no return date.
Yeah. That's suspicious. That's the most suspicious of all the suspicious. And there's been a lot.
There's a lot of suspicious in this suspicious story.
Don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
I'm just gonna let you keep going.
I would.
I know, and I enjoy that. So,
the look on your face. Like, I usually hear you do this. I don't usually see you do this.
Hi, welcome to seeing my face when we talk.
It's weird. Not gonna lie.
It is weird. All right. Back to Dean and Hoffer and the trial for the murder of Suzanne Olds. So, during the criminal trial, Hoffer's friend Bernadette Horan testified that she witnessed him become enraged at Suzanne because she was attempting to cut off Dean's money. Hoffer, on the other hand, claimed that he was angry with Dean when Dean proposed Hoffer kill Suzanne. He said he had broken things off then. Phone records indicated that was a lie. Unfortunately, a year later, Hoffer was acquitted of all charges and soon deported back to Germany.
So he's currently free, as far as
he's free and living in Germany. I looked him up while I was doing this. He has a Facebook account, so
of course he does.
Helmut Karsten Hoffer. He does have a Facebook, so go look him up. Say hello.
Yeah. Do with that what you will.
Yeah, I'm not gonna encourage or discourage.
Be like, who?
Who the hell is that? I don't care. So, in March of 1995, Kristen, Courtney, and Stephen filed a wrongful death lawsuit against their father. The case was brought forward in part to prove their father was involved and in part to keep their family money and property away from him. During the trial, Kristen testified that her mother was scared of Dean and Hoffer, that they were the only two people in the world that didn't love her, that she was extremely scared, extremely aware of her life being threatened by their father and Hoffer. Courtney said Courtney said her mother repeatedly asked her grown daughters how to keep safe, that she had begun case when she walked their dog, and that she only slept at night after securing the front and back doors, as well as locking the deadbolt on her bedroom door.
That's so sad.
The fact that she had a deadbolt on her bedroom door speaks volumes of her fear.
Yeah, that poor woman.
You have it's one thing to lock your front door and back door. Like, I'm obsessive about locking my door. Like, I can't sleep if I think for a second my front door is unlocked. And I live in an apartment, so it's like I have two other doors that should protect me, but I don't know my neighbors because I live in Chicago. Right. Who the hell knows your neighbors?
I mean, honestly, your landlord. There's all, you know what I mean? And they literally have a key. That's why I have a security system in my apartment. Because I'm like, at least it will go off when they open the door. Because you never know. You never know what people are like.
No, exactly. You never know what people are capable of. So there was one time where my front door deadbolt broke.
Oh, scary.
And I freaked out when I realized it wasn't turning. Like, I could turn it as many times as I want, but it wasn't latching. And I was so freaked out. So, of course, I slept on my couch, so I would hear if anybody opened the door right away. Mm-hmm. But I also, this is so stupid, but I put tape along the door so I knew if anybody had opened the door and just closed it again. And the tape was never opened, so nobody tried to open the door. But I was it was my way of knowing if anybody attempted to open the door and then just thought better of it.
Or was sneaking around in your apartment while you were sleeping.
Exactly. So I barely slept that night. I was so freaked out, but my landlord is good, so he fixed it the next day, and I had a new lock and everything.
Yeah, my last landlord made me not trust landlords, so I got a security system. And
your last landlord was a piece of shit.
Yeah. That's another story for another time, but I will say my security system has an app, so I can, if I'm in bed and I'm worried that I didn't set it, I can check on my app to make sure I set it, and I have a camera facing my front door, so if I'm hearing a sound, I can look at the camera and just make sure it's probably the cats. It usually is the cats, but it's nice to know. Yeah, because as a woman living alone, I don't want to get up and get confronted by some maniac, but I don't want to sit here and do nothing either. So
we're both women who live alone in major cities. You can never be careful.
And we both ingest a lot of true crime, so we know what to do to protect ourselves.
Oh yeah, a scary amount of true crime. I'm paranoid of literally everybody around me.
But living alone makes sense to be uncomfortable to some extent. Yeah. Living in a home that you've lived in for decades, the only other person that's lived there with you were family members, like your spouse and your children, like Suzanne in her case. You shouldn't feel that
shouldn't
afraid.
feel unsafe. Yeah. And she has a dog, so like the dog would definitely bark if somebody came into the house.
Yeah.
And if it was Hoffer, that's a person the dog doesn't necessarily know.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read that she
had
a deadbolt in her bedroom door, that broke my heart. Like that right there is proof of how scared she was. Because
it just kind of makes it all.
I don't love the lack of security I sometimes feel, but like I would never put a deadbolt on my bedroom door.
Yeah, but I think that brings it all to life because it's easy to hear these stories and think that they're like, oh, that's someone else. Couldn't happen to me, but that kind of detail like makes it human.
It really does kind of bring it to a place that you're just like, that's a lot of fear. It's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
She really did seem like a lovely person. So
yeah. And a good mom by the sounds of it too.
Very good mom. Everything she did during this time was to protect her kids. So she definitely loved them. They were lucky to have a good mother like that.
Did her kids win the civil suit that they brought against their dad?
Well, let's find out. Dean, upon questioning, alleged that Hoffer was a liar who had ample motive and opportunity to murder his late wife, that he was a liar. Defense countered that Hoffer, who had lied to detectives after Suzanne had been murdered, defense countered that it wasn't Hoffer who had lied to detectives after Suzanne had been murdered, although technically not true because he couldn't even get his story straight about where he was.
Right.
But they argued that Dean had lied about his ill will towards Suzanne, despite friends, relatives, and coworkers claiming that he regularly expressed that he wanted her dead. Ultimately, the judge ruled in favor of the children, declaring Dean responsible and that Hoffer likely carried it out. Dean was barred from accessing Suzanne's inheritance and joint assets. Dean did continue to live in the house on Ramona, which seems really sick to me, until April of 1996, when the estate evicted him. He was originally given 2 weeks to move at the time of the eviction, but when he was spotted buying a half-dozen 1-gallon cans of accelerant at a local hardware store, this caused concerns by the police, and he planned to burn down the house. He left the home for a crowd of police and helicopters. He moved to Laguna Beach and passed away at 82 years old in 2011. His children did not have contact with him.
What a D-bag.
Yeah. So I had always heard the story about her murder and that the husband was guilty of it, but that his crime, like his punishment was basically like, get out of town and don't come back. like it's the Wild West and they just ran him out of town for being a D-bag.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like Romeo and Juliet times when they banished people out of Fair Verona.
Yes.
You can't just call it Verona. It's Fair Verona.
I know. It's Fair Verona. Everyone knows that. Come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's my story. So I feel
good story. It's a sad
terrible.
Story.
Yeah. I feel terrible because, Suzanne deserved better.
Yeah.
And Dean deserved worse.
Dastardly Dean.
Dastardly Dean.
Well, he's a D-bag and I'm glad he's dead. The end.
Dastardly Dean and Fair Suzanne.
Yeah.
She deserves so much better. Fair Verona.
Wilmette.
Not Fair Verona whatsoever. Completely the opposite of Fair Verona.
It might be more like Verona. It's probably more like Verona than you think.
My Verona?
That's Sharona.
I know. So that episode of Wandering Chronicles. We wandered right into my hometown.
Yeah, it was a good story. I mean, not a good story. It wasn't a good story. It was a well-told story about something that I'm interested in having learned about, but it's a very sad story.
It is a very sad story. Suzanne definitely deserved better, and Dean definitely deserved worse.
Yeah. I think that's a good summary of all events involved. And so did Helmut. Yeah. He deserved worse, too.
Helmut deserved worse. We should all send him a Facebook message. Okay, don't do that. That's probably kind of weird. But,
also, if someone does...
That's on them.
Yeah, for the sake of us, we did not send anyone there.
No,
don't
we
do
did
that.
not.
That's not a good idea. We're just joking.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, I swear.
Chillax, it's a joke.
We're just joshing ya.
Oh, God. I can't hear the word Josh anymore without thinking of the Duggars.
Oh, God, you follow the Duggars too much.
I follow any religious group that is, well, no, any fundamentalist Christian group that is suffering. I'm into that.
Suffering is your love language?
Only if it's a Duggar.
There's so many of them, too, so that's a lot of suffering.
I picked the right... Quiverful family downfalls are among my favorite kinks.
Well, maybe we'll get to cover them at some point. And we get the rise and fall of prominent families.
Well, let's see where we're going to go next, and then maybe we can decide if that's going to be possible in our next story. That would be weird, but...
That would be so weird if that's actually how it goes, but...
All right, so let me...
the Geo Selector, and you tell me where we're going, and I'll tell you what we're talking about.
Yeah, GeoGuessr, by the way.
Thank you. I'll never remember that.
I know you won't. That's why I love you. It looks like, according to the magical wheel, we are going to be going to... Oh, this is fun. Are you excited?
I am so excited.
Do you want to know where we're going to go?
Oh, God, please tell me.
Portland, Oregon. I've always wanted to go there.
Oh, that's going to be great. Well, let me tell you what we're going to talk about while we're in Portland.
Cool. I hope it's something fun.
I'm shaking the cup. And we are... if it's not about donuts, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And we're going to be telling a natural resources environmental story from Portland, Oregon. So this will be really good.
Yeah. I'll cover that one if you don't mind. That sounds like something I would have fun digging into.
I would be so glad to oblige.
Oh, well, why don't you meet me there next week and I'll tell you what I found out.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Okay. Until then,
happy wandering.
Happy wandering indeed.
All right.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Wandering Chronicles Podcast with your host, Ashley and Jamie. You can follow us on social media at Wandering Chronicles Pod on TikTok, Wandering Chronicles Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and WND Chronicle Pod on Twitter. Or you can send us an email at wanderingchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. New episodes drop every Thursday. If you haven't already, please tell everyone you know to listen to our podcast. Your mailman, the guy who changes your tires, your kid's nanny, your nail technician, that young lady who walks the dogs, your neighbor, the one that's really loud, principal at your kid's school. I bet they listen to podcasts. Hey, thanks. Bye.